Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing, and Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve today. Uh, I thought I would do something that I don't normally do, and that's to do something where part of the piece that I'm making goes over the top of a stone. But I know a lot of people like this sort of style, so I'm going to do something that kind of falls into that category. I don't know if it's going to turn out nice or not. I guess we'll have to find out. But it's going to be a ring with a piece of labradorite in it, and it's going to have the setting is going to kind of go over the top a little bit. Hopefully it'll turn out cool. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I truly value their support. Not only have they provided me with some financial help, they have created this really nice community where a lot of people get to interact with each other and share their artistic ideas and resources and things like that. So it's turned into this great place over there. So thanks for making it that way. I appreciate that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and I appreciate them as well. We passed 25,700 last I checked, I believe. That's amazing. I can't believe I have that many followers on YouTube, and I do really appreciate it. I get such nice comments from people, and you guys are so supportive in so many ways, and I really do appreciate that. This was a venture I took on, and I wasn't sure whether it was going to go anywhere, and it has, so thank you for that. I also appreciate the financial help as well. The Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, buying my merch or my ebooks, that kind of stuff really keeps us afloat, so thanks for that. All right, well, let's make this ring and see how it turns out. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. I just switched over to this one because I filled up one recently. This particular one has different melting and flowing temperatures of different types of solder, and so it's got some handy information there. The real feature that I like are these dot matrix patterns in the background of the pages, because it helps me to draw better pictures since I'm not a terribly good drawer. Sketch artist? Not sure. This is what I had for today. It's going to be kind of swirly, and I may call it a ribbon ring, I'm not sure. I picked out this labradorite here, which has some interesting colors, blues and greens. So it should be pretty. But what I'm going to do is, it's not going to be super complex. We're going to make a little bearing out of 14 gauge square wire for the stone to sit on. And I'm going to attach two rings, or half rings really, that are going to go over the stone. And I think the way that we will tighten these down is probably we'll twist them slightly so that they elongate. So I'm going to try and do it relatively snug, and then we'll slide the stone in there and twist it slightly to see if it holds it pretty good. And we'll go from there. The band I'm going to make out of 8 gauge half round, which is 3.25 millimeters. These pieces that go over the stone, 16 gauge round wire, 1.3 millimeters. 14 gauge is 1.6 for the square wire here. So I think let's start with making a piece for the base underneath the stone here. So we want to make it just the same size as the stone so it doesn't really stick out at all. That way it'll fit in there snugly and we won't have any line of silver on the outside showing. I'm going to show off the stone as best we can. One of the reasons I don't generally like to put stuff over the stone is because it blocks part of the stone. And the stones are what I really like. So, but it's okay to try new things sometimes. Let's be experimental today. Now I need to find that piece of 14 gauge square that I just had a minute ago. Let's kind of straighten it out first. If you haven't been to my channel before, my setup is right here. I use this kind of torch and these sorts of flux and solder mostly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and file this fire mid. You can use the miter vise jig if you need to. So let's just try and make this by letting the wire kind of shape itself. I'm going to put the solder joint somewhere on the side of the long side of the oval. Putting it on the end makes it to where you have to have a sharper bend right where they connect, and that's not very ideal usually. The other thing to pay attention to is square wire, when you're trying to bend it sharply, has a tendency to twist sideways, and that's because it's trying to find an easier way to bend, because you're asking this outer edge to stretch really far, and this inner edge to compress really tightly, and so it really doesn't want to do that, and so it tries to turn sideways on you. And so periodically while you're doing this, you might need to stop and do some straightening out of things, because you can control it if you're careful. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's kind of bulging outwards there. That's what I'm talking about. So if you stop and fix it, you gotta show the metal who's boss. Tell you what, all I want for Christmas is lower silver prices. It is unfortunate right now that silver costs so much. Although it does make you a little more frugal and thrifty. I think we're pretty close size-wise, so I'm going to go ahead and file these, and then maybe we can solder and see how close we are. I did a video for my Patreon last night, and this morning I got tired, so I had to stop and do the rest in the morning. But I had a request a while back for how to make a silver guitar, and so I did a guitar pendant, and I thought it was pretty fun. In spite of being tired, it was fun. What am I doing here? Okay. So let's get that lined up. I have some solder here, so I think we're good to go. So let's do a little bit of, I'm going to file it just a skosh. I'm going to try and get it as close to the shape of the stone as I can, and then we'll see how close we got on size. I think we're going to be pretty close. So it needs to be a little bit more, maybe kind of elliptical. This might be the term. It's pretty close. You know, I might run the file around it a few times just to make sure it doesn't show from the top at all. But I think we're close on the shape as well. So I'm going to clean this up with the file just a bit. Make sure everything's flat. So here's my plan. I think in order to attach these little wires, I'm going to make a mark on top of here, and then we'll use a magnesia block, which is a soft surface, and we'll poke some 18 gauge or some 16 gauge round wire upright, like here and here, wherever I mark it, and then we'll solder that on there, and then we'll set the stone in there and we'll wrap it around there, and we can mark where we want to have it soldered together, and then take the stone out, and I think then we'll be able to solder it where it needs to go. And then we can start working on the band, which shouldn't take too long. We have a lot of filing to do on it to taper it, but I think that should be okay. So let's get this ready to go. Pretty similar. Oh. Alright, So we don't need too much here. We just need enough to go kind of flipping over the stone and going back down in there. Okay, so I'm going to do something called pick soldering. If you've never seen that, it's a nice way to be able to apply solder very specifically in just the amount you want in a particular place. And so once you learn how to do it, it really makes things a lot easier to do in some situations. So if you're interested, I have a video about it right there. And I found it to be one of the most useful skills I learned when I was first learning metalsmithing. Oops, a little too hot there. I'm going to see if I can't just put a little bit more in there. Got it that time. The only disadvantage about these magnesia boxes, they're kind of crumbly. A bit messy. You can also use the Cool Tools kiln blocks. Those work pretty well. But I have found them to be a little bit like springy. And so if you push something in, it bounces back a little bit. Which can be a problematic at times. So I'm thinking get it relatively snug like that. We need to make sure we mark where it crosses over too. So I'm holding it down as tight as I can. Make a mark about right there. Trying to get them kind of parallel. Parallel. Not sure why my voice wavered there. Okay, they're pretty good as far as placement, I think. Maybe. I'm going to cut off most of these. You can leave that much on there. Then let's push it back in this block here and try and keep everything just the level it is. I'm sure there's many ways to do this kind of thing. This is just kind of the way that I would have expected to do it. So if you have an interesting alternative to how you do things like this, I'd always love to hear your ideas. I get a lot of people who tell me really good shortcuts and stuff. Almost every time I get put out a new video, somebody tells me something that I hadn't thought about, that might have made it easier or whatever. So I love to hear that kind of stuff. I want to make sure these are touching too. If they're not touching, then you're trying to stuff solder into an empty space there. It doesn't ever work out very well, or rarely. So now these wires are exposed to the heat up top, and the ring itself is a little harder to get up to temperature. So I'm going to avoid the wires, otherwise you can melt them. There we go. You got to kind of dance around a little bit with the flame. Practice your flame dancing. Cool. We got it. You can cut those off now if you want to, if you're doing this. Alright, so I cut a piece, and when you're thinking about doing this sort of, it's almost a bypass ring going this way, just making it the size from this end to this end is not going to be right. So you need to calculate a little extra in because it's going to go past. And that's what I did. And I think I sized it for like a 7.5 or an 8 or something like that, but it ended up being about that long, which is, I don't know. Who knows how long it is? Let's see. Almost 10 centimeters almost, or almost 4 inches. And you can see I did a little pre-tapering on this side. I'm going to do that on both sides because I want to be able to kind of curly cue the end a bit and have it look like it kind of, it's going to look like a javelin by the time I'm done, I think, pointed on both ends. So I'm going to spend a little time doing that. Sometimes it helps me to hold on to things if I stick it in my miter mice chain like this. Then I can just kind of hold it like this, and it gives it a little more stability. It doesn't twist in there so much like it would in your hands. You can also just brace it against something if you're one of those bracer sorts. This is going to take a little longer, so you probably don't have to watch me do the whole thing, but I'm going to taper it down to where it looks like this side. Maybe even a little bit thinner towards the end on both sides. And then we'll do some curly cues. Okay, I got this kind of tapered, and I smoothed them out a little bit with my rotary wheel. And I'm going to try and bend these into a little curly cue. think I'm going to solder the one side on first, like that, and then we'll come back and solder the second side. That'll be easiest. We need to get this shoulder here up a little bit, I think. Alright, well I'm gonna see if I can get that configured just how I want. And let it pickle for a while, polish it up. Then we can put that stone in there and adjust those things so that it holds it in place. So I'll be back in a few. Okay, so I started experimenting with getting it in there, and I bent both of these off to the side, which kind of distorted the whole thing. And so my report to you is that getting that in there was really pretty challenging. And the tolerances were tight enough to where I had to really work on things. And I'm going to have to do some cleanup on these top prongs because I beat them up pretty bad while I was doing this. But alright, well, before I take some final pictures, I will clean that up, try and get those as symmetrical as I can. Make sure this sits pretty nicely straight up and down on your finger like that. So we'll have to do some slight hammering. Okay, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Alright, well that was the ribbonish sort of ring. I'm not sure what we're going to call it yet. If you enjoyed that, make sure to hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted. I would also love it if you would go hit my main channel page. I have been doing content for about 4 years at 3 videos per week, so there's a big pile of content over there for you to sort through. Lots of projects, lots of different skills at different levels of ability. Check it out. If nothing else, get some ideas for your own pieces. I'm almost certain you'll find something useful over there. And if you do, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. There's no cost to doing that. The other thing is, don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links there in addition to the information about this video. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks, or a couple. They're certainly a useful resource for me. I've been keeping track of all my projects in them since I started the YouTube channel, and it's a great way to have a record of what you've done, so that you can see how you did it, because it's hard to remember everything after that many projects. So get yourself a couple of those. They're really handy. So maybe get yourself a couple of those. I think they're pretty handy. There's a link to my ebooks if you want to get yourself one of those guides to either 2023 or 2024. Each one is a guide to all of the videos I did in that particular year. So if you're in 2024's, there's a page for each of the videos I did during that year. Each video's page has a picture of the sketch that I drew initially, final photo of the project when it was done, a list of materials to make the project, a difficulty rating, and then some notes I made about the project. Things like, did I learn something when I was making this? Because generally I learned something new. Did I find it to be a good project, a bad project? Was it a success or failure? Would I do it differently if I was to approach it again from at another time? Things like that, and I think it's a good resource. It's a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips and a really nice way to support my channel. Right after the first of the year, we should have 2025s as well. We're madly working on putting that one together. There's quite a bit of work involved in assembling information about all of those different videos, because there's typically about 170. So yeah, look forward to that after the first of the year as well. Finally, there's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that really cool community over there. I'd love to have you as a member over there. There's different tiers of membership, the lowest one being $5 a month, and that gets you all of my videos without the YouTube commercials, so that's kind of nice. The tiers above that have some interesting perks as well, like some live streams occasionally, and I do Patreon exclusive videos. Here's one I did last night for my Patreon. It's also a great place with a lot of cool people, so I think there's lots of resources you can tap into over there, and it might be a great place for you to be, so check it out. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Have a nice holiday season. Happy silversmithing.